Hello there, today I'm going to give you an update on the Puma ForeverRun Nitro. I've been using this shoe for about a month now, and if you haven't watched my first impressions video, do go and give that a watch if you want to have more of an overview of the shoe. This video, I'm going to go over more of my opinions and my thoughts after getting a chance to actually run in the shoe. So overall, my time in the shoe for about a month, I haven't enjoyed it that much, to be honest with you. First off, I think there's definitely some sizing issues going on here. I got a 9, UK 9, and also a UK 8.5 to compare which one would be the better fit. For me personally, the 8.5 was too small and cramped, and then the 9 just felt way too long. And for context, I tend to have quite a, not a wide foot, but a high volume, quite high instep foot. So when I first got the shoe and you step into it, you do feel this knitted upper. So we've got this stretch material right down here all the way throughout the upper, and then towards here where the laces are, this bit is much thicker and tighter to hold the midfoot in. And for me, the compression is just too much here. You really do feel it on the top of your foot, and if you're sensitive to lace bite or shoes being too tight, this might not be great for you, especially if you don't get the size nailed down perfectly. Because for me, in the 8.5 and also the 9, it's just too tight in this midfoot area. You really don't have much adjustment in the laces here because it's a knit. You have this like compression feeling that hugs your foot. Some people might actually like that, especially if you have a more narrow or normal shaped foot. But for me, it was just a bit unrelenting, and especially when you're on a run, it seemed to get worse as you put more miles in. So far, it has not stretched, and that feeling has remained. But yeah, despite the size issues, I used the 9 and I got on with it. This is because I had more room in the toe box on the 9 and it just felt a tiny bit less compressed, so I thought, okay, I'll try the 9. However, during my runs, the length that I've got in the toe box is too much because I felt like I was sizing up just to get away from some of that compression feeling. So I probably have over a thumb's width, just over a thumb's width in the toe box, and for me it felt like a bit too much. It feels like my foot isn't aligned exactly where it should be in the insole and where the small rocker is. It just hasn't been great for the fit. However, if you do get the fit nailed down in these, maybe it's a completely different shoe for you. But moving on to the actual run, despite the fit issues, it hasn't been too bad. First off, what you notice when you first step in is the massive heel, and as you can see, this heel is very chunky and very wide. That's to aid in the stability features of this shoe because it is marketed as a stability shoe, of course, but compared with the forefoot, you really do notice that heel. So we've got a 10mm drop. A lot of the weight is towards the back of the shoe, and even when you're walking, you do feel that weight at the back. And the transition when you're walking or running, if you're not a heel striker and you're actually trying to land on that midfoot or forefoot, it actually felt a bit hard at times. I'm a midfoot striker myself, and I just felt the heel getting in the way a bit, or just that weight just throwing it off a bit, like I was trying to hit midfoot, but it just overall came across a clunky feeling from this shoe. Me personally, I do prefer lower drops, so maybe the 10mm drop is just throwing this shoe off for me as well, and it's a fact that I don't get along with high drops. You're really not getting a lot of foam under the forefoot, especially as you can see it tapers right here towards the toe box. And to me, especially with how much squish there is, although it is quite firm, sometimes feel just that impact going right into your feet, and I just wish there was a bit more up front and not at the back, and it was a lower drop overall to really get some of the benefits from that Puma Nitro foam, because it is a good foam. I just feel like there should be more of it in the forefoot. Even for those that heel strike, I think would benefit from a bit more here, to be honest. And then what's interesting as well about this shoe is the insole that's given has like a small bump right on the midfoot of the shoe, and again, if you're sensitive to small things like this, you do feel it on the bottom of your midfoot, and to me it just amplifies that tightness in the upper because it's quite a thick insole anyway, and then this little bump right under the middle of your foot pushes you up just a bit more and makes that midfoot even tighter. And I think it is to help in the stability features of the shoe, but for me, I didn't enjoy the feeling. It didn't feel too natural, especially when I'm used to every other running shoe just having a normal flat insole. And I do think that's something quite specific they've added, that maybe would the shoe be better if it didn't have that special insole. So my thoughts on the overall ride of the shoe is nothing too spectacular, to be honest. I found the nitro foam in this shoe to be quite firm, and although you do still get this squish, which if you've ran in any Puma shoes before, you'll know what I mean. There is a squish to the Puma foam. However, in this model, I didn't feel like it was giving much back. It felt like it would compress and then almost not quite bottom out, but you definitely have some ground feel, especially up in the forefoot where you don't have as much stack as the heel. I just found it to be compressing maybe a bit too much, but not in a nice energy returning way, just in a kind of firm and unforgiving way. I often found my toes to be a bit achy towards the end of the shoe on longer runs, and I think that's due to the forefoot being quite stiff. Overall, the whole platform is quite stiff, and I think that was adding to some of the pains that I had. It just felt like my foot wasn't transitioning too smoothly through the strides. Then also I found that you get quite a slappy sound from this shoe when you're running, and again I think that's due to just how stiff the whole platform is. So there is like a tiny rocker right up in the forefoot. It's not much at all, but I think due to my sizing issues that I experienced, I think my feet just weren't in the optimal position to take advantage of that, because it felt really hard to get up onto your toes on your forefoot. I do think fit is pretty important in this shoe, because again, that feeling of the stiffness through the platform and my toes starting to ache, again I think were just factors of the fit that maybe if I could have got a more secure fit and positioning, maybe I wouldn't have actually experienced that. One positive I can say is the PumaGrip on the outsole. This is pretty solid. So I'm in the UK, I ran through it in some wet weather down on the canal towpaths too, and it holds up really well. It gives me a lot of confidence and I don't feel like I was ever going to slip. And looking at the durability, there's very little wear on this outsole so far. I do think this outsole would probably last quite long. And then you do have this exposed foam here, but again, looking at it, I don't think there's any wear on that. I was cautious things would get stuck into it, but no, that looks just fine, at least at the moment. And just another note about the fit, you don't have any extra eyelets here if you wanted to do a runner's loop. And again, I do think that's something just a bit frustrating from Puma here. It's a running shoe, and I always love to have just a bit of extra room if you did want to do that runner's knot, because I did have some trouble getting the heel locked in just due to how much weight is back here, I think, on the heel, and my heel did slip a little bit, and I just would like a bit more adjustability all throughout the laces really. I just really didn't feel like I could do much with this fit. So when you do cinch the laces, you can feel it on the top of your foot. So again, if you're sensitive to that, just be aware that you really don't have too much adjustability in the laces, whether you want to loosen them off or tighten them up. I do think this is gonna work for very limited people depending on your foot shape, because when I sized up to the size 9, I actually found I had a lot of width in the midfoot, so I could move my feet side to side, but then the heel would still be loose, and then the top I had too much room for my toes, but the midfoot was just so locked in and too tight. And again, that is probably partly due to my specific feet, but if you don't have the narrowest or low volume feet, I just see this being a really weird shaped shoe from Puma. A very specific shaped foot would fit in this. It's frustrating because if it was a more generous sized platform and upper, I just think this could work for a wider range of people and it would actually be a pretty solid shoe. But I know this is a common concern across Puma's running shoe range in all of their different shoes now. Their uppers aren't accommodating to a wide amount of people. So this is marketed as a stability shoe from Puma, and although it is a light stability shoe, its features basically comprise of a run guidance system, which is this harder heel counter, and the sidewalls that run up the upper, and then you have a harder EVA foam that surrounds the softer nitro foam. You don't notice it too much. I think the main thing you'll notice is just how stiff the platform and the overall shoe is, and for some people that might help guide your stride through the run. But for me, I didn't feel it too much, just really the stiffness is what I felt. So the Puma ForeverRun, I don't think it worked great, at least for me and my feet. I probably won't be logging too many more miles in it because it just doesn't feel great. It just feels clunky to me. I didn't enjoy any of my runs, and I did start to get some pain because of that compression of the midfoot. And I think that's the main thing for me, just how tight it is in the midfoot on my feet. It's not a nice feeling, especially as if I'm doing a longer run, that pain only got worse. So I don't expect it to loosen off at least too much. And I even tried the Finnish socks I have. I tried to change the insole and I can't shake that tight midfoot. So my advice is just beware of the Puma ForeverRun if you do tend to have either a wider foot or a higher volume foot, especially in here where the instep is and your midfoot where this bit of knitted material compresses. I'd just recommend to maybe try 2 sizes if you do want to give this shoe a go. See which one fits better, because I do think it's important as well that you get your foot lined up with the geometry of the shoe. I'll be back with some more shoes soon. Hopefully they fit a bit better than this one, but you can get this shoe pretty cheap right now, at least in the UK. You can pick it up on a bargain because I know the Puma ForeverRun 2 is coming out soon, so maybe I'll check that out. Maybe they've made some improvements that I did want to see in the fit, but I'd say maybe give it a go if you do have a lower volume or normal foot shape. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.